welcome to Laments. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week edition of the program, we'll be focusing on the economic situation that Nigeria finds itself with and how workers are coping with it, most especially as the country experienced a total blackout during the week. We will be right back.
More than 1 year ago, the ILO, in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Labour and other leading actors, validated the revised national policy on labour migration. The policy is designed to protect migrant workers and promote their welfare and that of their families.
Some progress.
Another validation exercise is an apt opportunity for ILO to demand formal approval and implementation of the labour migration policy from the Nigerian government.
In promoting decent work for all, especially through guidance that facilitates standardized practices, thereby advancing the effectiveness of labour market, further informs this collaboration with the federal government of Nigeria, through which these resources have been developed.
Here, critical actors, including labour centres, gather to validate the pre-departure orientation seminar manual for migrants in countries of birth and host countries. They are also to authenticate the gender mainstreaming strategy for the International Labour Migration Division. Participants give a thumbs up for the initiative and how well the proposed manuals will assist the migrant and mainstream gender.
In government's determination to facilitate fair and orderly migration, the ministry carries out pre-departure orientation seminars in collaboration with social partners for ready-to-go migrant workers through the instrumentality of the migrant resource centers.
NSC is happy to be part of the Fairway project of the ILO, which has remained pivotal to the creation of the network and the needed framework to make migration process more humane.
On one hand, migrant workers contribute to growth and development in their countries of destination. On the other hand, their countries of origin benefit from their remittances and the skills they have acquired.
This pre-departure orientation manual is a novel idea, as it will strengthen the capacities of labour officers and other relevant stakeholders in providing support to labour migrants who migrate for overseas job placements.
At the end of the one-day workshop, participants validated the knowledge products developed for the International Labour Migration Division of the Federal Ministry of Labour and Employment.
The Lagos State chapter of the Senior Staff Association of Universities, Teaching Hospitals, Research Institute and Associated Institutions has called on the federal government to fulfill the agreement it signed with health workers over payment of allowances. The coordinating chairman of the association, Omoni Olaleko, made the call during a protest by members of the union in Lagos.
For the period of the COVID-19 pandemic, that for those people working in teaching hospitals, that 50% of our basic salary will be paid as inducement allowance, all right? And for those in specialist hospital, like ours here, 40% will be paid to them. But when it was time for payment, government came up with their own magic. That was when they categorized some of our members as non-essential. Another thing that we want to call the attention of the media to is the issue of Congress adjustment. We've been on this for a very long time. All right? After a series of meetings, sometimes in October 2021, a 7-man committee was set up, all right, to fine-tune the issue of Congress adjustment. And do you know, up till now, October 2022, is almost 1 year. Nothing has been heard. It was budgeted for. And then in health sectors, we deal with lives. We don't want a situation whereby we go on strike and people will start saying, oh, we are not this. That is why we are calling the attention of the public, the media.
The health workers displayed various placards that describe their demands from government, which include implementation of new hazard allowance, COVID-19 inducement allowance, and Congress adjustment.
We are pleading. Now we are still pleading with government to do the needful. Because if the needful is not done, then we will issue our ultimatum. And the moment that is done, what is happening in the education sector will be a child's play. The health sector will not be a joke. Come to the hospital. Many of the professionals have left the system. How much are we being paid for hazard? 5,000. Can 5,000 treat malaria today in Nigeria? And that has been in existence for over 20 years.
The agreement for payment of COVID-19 inducement allowance was signed with government in April 2020. The workers called for urgent implementation of the new hazard allowance, which government should have commenced payment since January 2021.
Our patient is being what?
It's not a surprise to me, actually. In fact, like I said before the interview, I did not even know that there was a blackout or there was anything like that, because I thought it was a normal thing that happens in Nigeria. Lagos, Nigeria, there's no light. We pay for this light. In fact, will you believe that even the same people that said they were going on strike, they actually came around to cut people's lights? So what kind of strike are they going for? So it was not a strike at all. I don't know what they were doing. You understand? So the government needs to do something very urgently about this situation. They give us estimated bills, we pay for prepaid meter bills, yet we don't have this light. So it was not blackout for me. It's a normal thing in Nigeria. If welfare issue is the issue, then everybody should go on strike. All workers should go on strike in Nigeria, because there's nobody that's having proper welfare conditions in Nigeria anymore. So everybody should just go on strike, so that the government will know that things are not right. So, well, if it is for welfare, then all of us should just join the strike. All of us go home and then we relax until the government is able to do something.
In fact, it's quite unfortunate that in this kind of 21st century, we are still experiencing, power outage. NEPA is going on strike. I mean, the government should do something and answer them with what they are. I heard they are saying the allowances, salary, and other stuff. They should settle them. Light is something that is. Anywhere you go in this country, in this world, light is something that is very sacrosanct. I had some private sectors lost over $70 billion because there's no light. No banks are there, insurance company is there, manufacturing company cannot produce because there is no light, and this is part of what destroyed the economy. Because if there is no light, economy is already a shamble. Economy cannot move, and by the time we continue like this, the Nigerian economy is already battered, so it continues to be worsening. So government should try as much as possible to make sure they answer these NEPA people to go back to work and give us light. We don't want blackout. Enough is enough.
Actually, strike is not the best way. They need to come together and resolve the issue within themselves. I think that will be and it's for someone pathetic in this area for them to take light, very commercial area, and somehow this environment, which is Ikeja Secretariat in particular, it caused a lot of damage due to the non-available of the NEPA light. It caused a lot of issue, but thank God that they brought it in the morning.
It was terrible because when I came back from office, there was no light to charge my phone and even to watch TV. And we say, what is happening? That we don't know what there. It's later my son told me that the NEPA, they are on strike. We are asking the government to do the needful things so that they will not go on strike, because it will affect many people that are using light to do their own business.
On the profile interview segment this week, I'll be speaking with the Director General of NECA. He brought us up to speed on what the organized private sector position is towards the several challenges that the economy of the country is faced with. He also reacted to the strike that has been called off. It's good to have you on the program, and congratulations on your appointment as the Director General of NECA.
Thank you very much.
Is it really a good time to be the DG right now?
It's an interesting time.
So,
because of what we do and the challenges that we have in the economy now and the challenges that member companies are facing. So it's quite an interesting time, but we're up for the challenge.
So, recently, NECA released a press statement indicating some solutions towards the economic challenges that we might be faced with in the country. Can you bring us up to speed why it was necessary for you to send this message out to relevant stakeholders?
Thank you very much. I think for us, we're a business membership organization, and the focus is basically to help businesses to be sustainable. And for government, it's also an enlightened self-interest, because when businesses are sustainable, when businesses are thriving, they're in a position to expand, they employ more staffs, so government generates income from corporate tax, also employee pays tax. Then with the quantum of people getting employed, you also reduce the incidence of banditry, so many social vices that are happening in society. So it's a concern for all of us that businesses must thrive. And for us, if you look at the current issues that we have, forex scarcity, businesses cannot get inputs to expand their businesses. We have issues on fiscal monetary policies, taxes coming up every day. The recent ones is telecoms and data tax. And you cannot, in one breath, say you are creating an environment favorable for organized businesses to thrive, and at the same time you are creating, coming up with policies that are stifling those same organizations. And if you look at the National Development Plan, 2021 to 2025, the private sector is given a big role to play in the context of employment generation. So if you are asking them to generate employment and asking them to do so much within the context of social and corporate social responsibility also, then you don't create bottlenecks for them. So those are the focus of our engagement. Look, we need to create an environment that will enable organized businesses to thrive as one of the panaceas to national development. And we raise so many of those issues. Forex issues, give manufacturing priority.
So talking even about forex issue, how would you say your member companies have been coping with the fluctuation between the naira and dollars, looking at the monetary policies, looking at the fiscal policies? What's been the feedback?
It's been difficult to cope. Also been difficult to plan. Because you plan at the beginning of the year that you buy, you negotiate inputs that, okay, a dollar is 450 naira per dollar. And then in a short breath, it's jumped to 500, 600. At the point, it was 710 naira according to reports. Then it places you in a position where you can plan. It places you in a position where you can maximize your productive capacity. So while the CBN is selling at 430, 450 naira, you realize that at the black market is a different ballgame. And when there is scarcity at the official rate, then if you want to remain in business, one of the options you have is either to buy at the black market or you go out of business. Yes, while CBN is promoting the backward integration and process, local content issues, but those take time. So you have to, while you are pushing that local content issues, backward integration should take the front stage, so that we reduce the quantum of dollars that is going for export. Then at the same time, you have to give those businesses some buffer so that they can actually plan and transit gradually into the issue of backward integration. I must tell you, it has been difficult for organizations, difficult for businesses, especially those that have to buy input from overseas. So it's not a very good time for businesses, actually, and we are really feeling the heat.
And talking about employment and talking about unemployment and the campaign for decent work, how would you imagine that organized private sector, which plays an integral part of the nation's economy, how do you expect, or what would be your recommendation or expectation from relevant stakeholders to ensure that organized private sector get the best out of the system and will be able to create enough wealth which would move down to the employees?
I think the first thing is to prioritize. Government have to really take the difficult decision of prioritizing what exactly is important for us or important to us. And within the context of importance, you have to pick which sector or which investment, even in infrastructure, which investment will give me the biggest return, or which investment will have the greatest impact on the larger business community. And then we start picking those sectors with huge potential to drag other sectors out of the quagmire, and we start investing in them. So you don't just because of a policy or regulation, or because we want to be seen to come up with a policy to drive the economy, then we come up with those policies. And one of our recommendations was that government should endeavor to collaborate more with organized businesses. They should deepen engagement, because as one of them, I think a former president said, you can't shave a man's head behind him. If you want to shave his head, he has to sit down, you have to sit down with him, and you have to seek his cooperation to shave his head. So if government is coming up with policies, then they have to sit down with organized businesses. And together we look at those policies, because we are the ones that the policy is going to affect on the long run. So sit down with them, agree on these are the policies that we work from the perspective of operators, because we are the ones operating the economy, we are the ones running the businesses. So we agree on those policies, and then we agree on implementation milestones, and also processes where we can gauge whether those policies are effective or not. Someone also said it's better to be inconsistent than to persist in error. So at the point when you realize those policies are not giving the returns that we expect, then there's nothing wrong in reviewing those policies and look, this is not working, can we try this? This is not working, can we try this? And those are the concerns that we've had, with all the policies. Naira value keep going up. We banned the BDCs. We did so many things concerning the Naira, but still,
it's not working.
It's not working. Naira is still going up. The economy is not jumping out of the quagmire that it is. So I think it calls for government to actually sit down and say, look, these things, are they really working? And that's, if you remember, we did our summit, employer summit, in June, and those are part of the outcomes of that summit. Look, let's deepen collaboration. We are all stakeholders in this environment, and as you know, government doesn't have the monopoly of knowledge. So collaborate with businesses, collaborate with employers to deepen those policies, and let us share our perspective, and even give you alternative policy options if we realize these are not working. So those has been our position, a friendly disposition, but a very strong position. And look, for this economy to thrive and for Nigeria to actually achieve its full potentials, you cannot play with businesses.
Very quickly, the Nigerian Union of Electricity Employees embarked on an industrial action. Though they said they've informed government about this action for more than 2-3 months, and the government did not yield to their demands. However, I would like to know how your members responded to this, because it was total blackout, and we know that we need power to actually do business.
Well, it's part of the contradictions in our environment. You need power to drive industrialization. It's a fundamental fact. Even our neighbors, Ghana, Benin Republic, those countries, that ordinarily you shouldn't call them within the realm of Nigeria. They are moving towards a sustainable power supply. And it's unfortunate that we find ourselves in that situation where we have to shut down for one whole day, as report says. For organized businesses, it's quite a huge loss, especially for businesses where power is quite fundamental. Why most organizations will not feel it much is because most are becoming alternative power suppliers to themselves. Most organizations, you see, they have generators. Most, if they're not on generator, most they have they're on solar. So by default, the absurd is becoming the normal. Ordinarily, those alternative sources of power should complement the national grid. They should complement the public power supply. But now, most organizations are now having their own standby supply using the national supply as alternatives. So for those that could not meet up those, that could not live up to those, the financial burden of having your own steady power supply, then it creates a different dynamics for them. Especially the MSMEs, the small and medium scale enterprises, that the operation is driven by power, as it were. So I can't quantify in Naira terms how much was lost, but I can tell you it runs into trillions. It runs into trillions, and that for us also raises concern about priority that I mentioned earlier. Certain sectors that we should give priority to. If they actually give government the long notice before going on strike, That would be unfortunate if government didn't do anything. You know, we don't have those reports, but fundamentally, it'd be unheard of that for a whole nation as ours, we could shut down, or a union could shut down the power supply for 1 year. Whether the grievance whether it's justifiable or not justifiable is a different thing. The worrisome part is that we allowed it. Or we all conspired one way or the other, whether government, whether the union, whether stakeholders that refuse to talk, we all conspired one way or the other to make it happen. And the consequences is basically for all of us to bear.
So moving forward, what kind of industry would you like to see as regards workers' relation with employers of labor and also government?
Well, what the ILO preach and what we preach from our perspective is responsible enterprises. You mentioned of decent work. We preach responsible enterprises, where employers work within the confines of their rights, where employers does not deprive workers of their rights, where the lines between responsibilities, your rights, rules, and responsibilities are clearly marked, where everybody within the context of industrial relations work together peacefully, harmoniously. Because without a peaceful environment for businesses to work, then we don't have what we call the industrial harmony. And if there is no harmony in the business, then you can't have high level productivity. So what we look at and what we expect, and from my interaction also with the NLC, TUC, very wonderful leadership they have, we've collaborated significantly in so many areas. And during the COVID time, I think we signed an MOU with the labor union that employers will not sack or relieve employees of their work except it becomes practically impossible for them to keep. And those MOU were respected by employers and also respected by unions. So that's just to reinforce the fact that we have a very good relationship with our social partner. And that is what we expect across board. Beyond the NLC, trade unions at the sectoral level, we expect everybody to be responsible, employers responsible to their responsibilities, employees also at the union responsible to the general environment, general macroeconomic situation of our country, responsible to the employers within the context of productivity. And once there is wealth, once the business is thriving, a responsible employer that NECA members have, we always deal with the employees responsibly. So that is the kind of environment that we expect. Peaceful, collaborative, partnership-driven kind of workplace where everybody is at peace and everybody is striving at the same pace.
Thank you very much for your time.
You're always welcome, Sharon.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.